The mistaken idea of a merely outward imitatio Christi, or imitation of Christ, is further exacerbated by a typically European prejudice which distinguishes the Western attitude from the Eastern. Western man is held in thrall by the 10,000 things. He sees only particulars. He is ego-bound and thing-bound, and unaware of the deep root of all being. Eastern man, on the other hand, experiences the world of particulars, and even his own ego, like a dream. He is rooted essentially in the ground, which attracts him so powerfully that his relations with the world are relativized to a degree that is often incomprehensible to us. The Western attitude, with its emphasis on the object, tends to fix the ideal, Christ, in its outward aspect, and thus to rob it of its mysterious relation to the inner man. It is this prejudice, for instance, that impels the Protestant interpreters of the Bible to interpret the kingdom of God as among you instead of within you. I do not mean to say anything about the validity of the Western attitude. We are sufficiently convinced of its rightness. But if we try to come to a real understanding of Eastern man, as the psychologist must, we find it hard to rid ourselves of certain misgivings. Anyone who can square it with his conscience is free to decide this question as he pleases, though he may be unconsciously setting himself up as an arbiter mundi, a world judge. I, for my part, prefer the precious gift of doubt, for the reason that it does not violate the virginity of things beyond our ken. Christ the ideal took upon himself the sins of the world, but if the ideal is wholly outside, then the sins of the individual are also outside. And consequently, he is more of a fragment than ever, since superficial misunderstanding conveniently enables him, quite literally, to cast his sins upon Christ, and thus to evade his deepest responsibilities, which is contrary to the spirit of Christianity. Such formalism and laxity were not only one of the prime causes of the Reformation, they are also present within the body of Protestantism. If the supreme value, which is Christ, and the supreme negation, which is sin, are outside, then the soul is void. Its highest and lowest are missing. The Eastern attitude, more particularly the Indian, is the other way around. Everything highest and lowest is in the transcendental subject. Accordingly, the significance of the Atman, the self, is heightened beyond all bounds. But with Western man, the value of the self sinks to zero, hence the universal depreciation of the soul in the West. Whoever speaks of the reality of the soul or psyche is accused of psychologism. Psychology is spoken of as if it were only psychology and nothing else. The notion that there can be psychic factors which correspond to divine figures is regarded as a devaluation of the latter. It smacks of blasphemy to think that a religious experience is a psychic process. For, so it is argued, a religious experience is not only psychological. Anything psychic is only nature, and therefore, people think, nothing religious can come out of it. At the same time, such critics never hesitate to derive all religions, with the exception of their own, from the nature of the psyche.